Estate Agency X, the UK's #1 estate agency podcast discussing the future of estate agency, entrepreneurship and business with hosts Mark Burgess and Rob Brady. On this episode of Estate Agency X, I'm today with Paul Quinn from Oakfield Property. Paul discusses with me around his journey of starting his estate agency, not actually in a traditional way, being a former landlord himself and his frustrations and how he set up that, how things have changed in the last 14 years with him, how he took some time to grow his portfolio, how he got into estates and sales, and where he sees the industry going in the future. So welcome to the show, Paul.
Cheers, Rob.
So, come all the way down from, I always say Liverpool, but everyone gets offended because you're not Liverpool, you're Welsh. It's because you're a die-hard Liverpool fan.
Yeah, I live in Chester, but we operate in Flintshire, which is North Wales.
So thanks for joining me today.
Cheers.
So I wanted to get you down,
Yeah,
because for any listeners out there, you're probably gonna speak to Paul and I, whether we go into an ADHD rant for the next 2 hours, of Paul's pretty much like an estate agent, but the most non-estate agent you're going to come across, in how he outlooks into how the industry is, how he should do stuff, his beliefs and sort of ways of working. And I think that comes interestingly from his backstory of how he got into agency. So over to you, Paul. Like, estate agency name?
Oakfield Property.
And how long has it been running?
14 years in October.
Wow, so 14 years.
Yeah, 2010 October.
2010, post crisis. So how did Oakfield Property come about? Like, what was your background? Like, as in getting in before you got into property?
Yeah, so left school at 16, straight into family business, which was predominantly market stalls, few shops, small shops, local shops, bit of wholesale, etc. And that lasted until I was 21. Then my dad had to liquidate the company. 1991. It was actually liquidated on my 21st birthday, 1991. And after that, the best bit of advice my parent or my dad gave me was, he came home one day and said, "You bought a house." And I go, "What are you on about?" He goes, "There's a house up the top of the road, a little old terraced house, old lady passed away." And he said, "You need to make an offer." I don't know if he contacted maybe the agent back in the day when you go in and get the paper card. And I can't remember exactly, Rob, but it was about 21 or 22 grand I paid for it. And I bought that house. And off I went on me. That was me as a house. Working markets. And then started working with my brother. And we took the markets up to, I think we had 8 or 10 shops and about 6 million pound turnover. 68 staff.
Wow.
I think at one point. And that business, because of the product we dealt with, so predominantly very short dated or out of date food, which, was all about volume, turnover, relatively small margins. And that business was coming to an end at a point after someone tried to buy us out. A household name tried to buy us out from a major supermarket chain, and that we couldn't agree the numbers, so we carried on our own way. And then eventually that business was coming to an end because that industry changed quite a lot around the way manufacturers wanted to dispose of their waste, basically.
Yeah.
They didn't want it to be going into our market. So I knew that was coming to an end, and we'd had a little bit of property off the back of that was being managed by a local agent. And I remember I'd started sort of networking into property and thinking about property and thinking, it's interesting. And I'd sort of done a few houses up at this point and thought, well, quite like it, quite like the concept of taking it back to brick and starting again. It's not difficult. And I thought, well, if we can get a few houses, I haven't got a pension, so that'll be a starting point. And off on that journey we went. But the local agent, I remember Gary, my brother, was away on holiday. And the local agent sent me a stroppy letter saying this property didn't have a gas cert. And I thought, well, hang on, that's your responsibility, mate. And he sort of, in this letter, said, if you don't get it done within inside 2 weeks, you know, we're going to get it done, charge X, Y, and Z. And this, and really like a letter as if to say, this is all your problem, your fault. So I got the contract that I'd signed with him, and in the contract it said, we will not begin to market a property until a current gas cert is in place. So I just went back to him and said, well, there you go. You shouldn't have marketed the property, should you? So I just remember that conversation coming to a head, and I just went down there and said, give us all the keys back to the properties you manage.
How many was that at the time?
I don't remember exactly, Rob, maybe 10. So
still a big number for an agent.
Yeah, and then
shit.
And then the thing that stuck in my mind when I got there, I didn't I said to him, look, I want to have a meeting face to face. Went to his office, and the first thing he wanted to do was say to me, do you want to come see my new BMW outside? I'm like, mate, I'm not here for that. I mean, you know, let's sort this problem out, and then by the way, give me my keys back. So then I come away from that, and I remember going on the train on a Saturday to Peterborough, to Progressive Property. Rob and Mark, they were doing some sort of event, you know, networking and buy houses, no money down and all that. And on the way down there, in the back of my diary, I thought, if I can open a letting agency, 50 quid per property per month, gas cert every year, earn a tenner out of that or something, and if I can get 200 or 300 of them, I've cracked it. It's easy. It's the easiest thing in the world. It's like putting seeds in the ground and watching potatoes grow, Rob. It's just free, isn't it? And yeah, so I opened this little agency. I found a little empty unit and opened it, and man, was I in for a shock.
Yeah.
What was
interesting?
Thing.
So like what? So first, like the first few months of that, I remember going from just even a estate agent into lettings, and at that time, even while I worked in the industry for quite a few years and was around it, I thought, holy fuck, what is this side of it? Like I remember working with a partner at the time, and like I was like, I'm going to go and do this, and she was like, you can't do this, and I was like, oh, what do you mean you can't do that? So I had the old sales hat on. She's like, no, you can't do that. So you need to get this, and you need to get that. I was like, I'll just move them in there, and she's like, no, you can't do that. I thought, God, this is a lot more harder than I used to think lettings was. I thought it was a bit of a doddle.
Yeah, no, it was extremely hard. So prior, I think, to having that agency, one of our first rental properties that we had, when we took them off the agent, the first ones we let back out, I remember me and Gary meticulously getting it like spot on. And sort of someone I know's sister's daughter, yeah? Does that make
One of the
sense?
worst case scenarios, probably.
Yeah. Comes in, she has a look round it, and like pulls out 600 quid deposits, gives it us in cash, and that was the only money we ever had offering in 6 months. And wow. 6 months later, we had to get an eviction, get her out of there, and got the property back. And that was like welcome to, you know, being a landlord. So at that moment in time, I vividly remember signing up through, I think it's called MOL, where you do the ALA training, and they send you the manual out. And like, you're supposed to read that manual over a year or two and do the exams. I just read it back to back in a week and sat all the 4 exams.
Yeah.
And then thought, right, I'm ALA.
It's exactly the same as me.
Yeah, I'll get something done. And then we opened this tiny little office, about half the size of this room we're sat in today. And a local lad I went to school with, actually, had a bit of a portfolio, and he come in and he said, I'm renting that one out for $475. He said, if you can get us $550, you can keep the difference. So I thought, right, that's it. And he said, as my others come empty, you can have them. If you can just up the rent, you can have the difference, sort of thing. So that he became my first client, and then we just kept going into, you know, rentals, keep going, working around the rentals, and done all sorts of different things. Rob, and you were talking to Charlotte before about, you know, when I came into it, we were just on the end of the newspaper advertising. And I actually remember our local Chester Chronicle newspaper coming to see us and saying, after we were advertising, they said, oh, we're setting up you know, a website where you can advertise.
Reach and whatever, I think it was.
I can't remember what it was, but it's part of Trinity Mirror Group, I think. But they said, oh, you can advertise in here. And I thought, well, no, you know, obviously if you can see that it's coming to an end, then I might as well stop advertising.
They're trying to like force down pay-per-click banners and all sorts of stuff. I remember that. And I remember even sitting down as the directors and saying, page numbers of all the bigger ones, corporates were getting smaller and smaller, and I think we got to the point where we had like half-page advert because we just wanted to be in a newspaper. And I said to them like, "Oh, it's 500, 600 quid still at the time." It's like,
waste of time.
what is the worth of this? Like, no one could see it. We're trying to cram as much information into that one advert. It's just confusing as hell.
Yeah. Well, that same client who brought us our first set of keys, he owned a local news agents. And I remember when I was a kid, my dad used to send me up to buy that paper because it had a massive property section in. So I used to run up there on a Thursday night, get it for my dad, bring it home, and he wanted to read it. About a year ago, he'd gone from selling 3,000 copies a week. About a year ago, he was selling 30 copies a week. They've now stopped selling it altogether.
Yeah.
So, paper media has just gone round on it.
Yeah. So started the agency purely out of frustration because of like, I wanted to do this myself. Did you initially track the type of clients you attracted and were pretty much similar profiles of landlords like yourself? Were they self-managing agent landlords, or were they from other agents?
No, most of them, Rob, were, and still today, most of the client base we have is single let people. So they are mostly people that were in a position where they could maybe buy their new house, either couldn't sell the last one or didn't need to sell the last one. A lot of older, maybe retired people who've just got one-offs. That's probably 80% of the business we do. I got a little bit of luck on the way. Remember writing off the land registry, paying a £3 off a property, and that £3 has turned into my biggest client now.
Wow.
Yeah. So you do get a bit of luck, and I know Mr. Burgess, if he's watching, he hates that thought of writing off the land registry and letters, and I reckon that's probably one of the only success stories I've had off letters over that period of time. But that lady's converted into probably 30 managed lets with us.
Nice.
So that number's been with us for a number of years. So it's worthwhile doing sometimes. But
and then how big a growth was that portfolio? You said originally back of a notebook, 300 properties, £50 a thing, £10 for the gas cert. It'd be easy money. Like, how long has that taken for that to even come close to those sort of stats?
10 years plus.
Yeah.
We sunk loads of money in, Rob. At the beginning, me and Gary, we went to the bank. When we set it up, went to our bank and said, Lloyds, we said, can we have a new bank account? They go, yeah, no problem. Don't even ask us for a loan. This is in 2010. We're not going to. Well, don't, because we ain't giving you one. And that's it. You're on your own. So basically, we just had to put in whatever spare money we had and just sit there and wait for it to, come good. So we didn't have revenue really to spend on mass advertising, etc. It was all just like word of mouth. And then you do get lucky. The old guy we rented the office off has become our second biggest client. And he was with the agent that I used to be with. So slowly over.
So maybe in the first year, what did the numbers look like from where you thought? Like, was it?
I thought we would get to 100 in like a few months.
Yeah.
And it was a few years.
Yeah.
And then I'd done a bit of a collaboration with someone who had 50, and that didn't work out really. And they took them 50 away, so that was probably about 4 years in, and they took them 50 away, so it was almost like not going back to the beginning, but
big
massive hit.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, around about the time when we started doing sales, and that came off the back of we never sold landlord property, but a landlord wanted to sell a property, and I just said, well, we don't do sales, go to the other agent down the road. They went to them. Of course, we held the keys because we'd had it as the rental. And I'll never forget the lady, her name, Elizabeth Dowd. She lived in Bristol, and she should have never been a landlord. That was the reason she was selling. She was too emotional. And at the end, when I gave her the keys out, I just rung her up and said, thanks for your business over the time. And I was the sale thing. Shit, it was awful. And I remember having that conversation, coming off the phone saying to Gary, we're missing a trick here. We're missing a trick. So we started doing sales at that point.
How long was that into the business?
That would have been round about what are we now, Rob? 24, 18. That would have been round about 2015, 5 years into the business maybe.
So it's almost coming to your 10-year anniversary.
And
how was that experience? Because obviously from a perspective of buying properties and being involved in that process, like, and probably building your own portfolio, surely there must have been. I have a couple of agents I've had in the past where they're literally a bit like that. They didn't go into the lettings route, but they went. I was just getting so frustrated with the buying experience I was receiving. I decided to set up my own estate and see with my own lettings portfolio as my back in. So, like, was there anything you particularly learnt from the buying experience that when you went to do the sales, you thought, I want to do this a little bit different?
I think the old lady I was telling you about became my biggest client. There was a lady and a man at the time, then he passed away, and sadly she's just passed away last week. She was wealthy. I'd been in the game, like buying property, for probably 50 years, and just said to me after a period of time, you know, we'd like to keep buying and investing, and like this is what we want. Give us some criteria. You know, 2 beds. You know, must have decent muster boilers or whatever, plastic fascias and soffits, off-road parking, etc., etc. Built after 1980, I think that was another one. And I want 6% yield. Can you sort of find us properties to do that job? And yeah, no problem. We can buy you some. And I learned through the buying process of them, because they weren't obviously being advertised with us. A lot of these were with other agents. So, you know, for the number she wanted to buy, we'd have to work with other agents. And I just learned during that process, those other agents didn't necessarily, they paid more attention to their fee than they did to their seller. Especially the ones that I would class as corporates, you know, the ones that I sort of class corporate anyone who's got 5 or 6 branches, really, because
Different animal.
yeah, it is a different animal. And I just felt those people, we would, you know, I could get a phone call off them going, look, Paul, you know, it's on for 125. We know they'll take 100. Would you pay 100 for it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, of course we'll. We'll buy that. We'll rent that out. No problem.
Yeah.
That's not acting in the client's best interest, is it? They're working for. But they knew we were a good cash buyer. But and you know, that client would have probably bought that at 125 because she wasn't hungry for a discount. She was just hungry to invest her money that was sat in the bank.
As long as the yield stacked up.
That was it.
Yeah. And that's quite a common thing. I remember working for a big national, and that was really forced down me, and that's the reason why I had to move from an independent. No different than what we were talking off air about when I worked for one of the big banks and I was taken by a building society. The ideology of like, just get the sale done. Just get it done. Like, we need the numbers on the board, not that person's losing out on 25 grand just because they said it. Like, you know, you experience it now. Even like just a one-off property I'm selling at the moment for someone I live in a village. Someone comes to me and says like, "What do they take?" And I'm like, "Well, it's on for this price." So because it's outside targets or anything like that, it's like that's what they'll take.
I mean, for me, Rob, you're instructed to do a job, aren't you? You're instructed to do the job in the best way you can. And the price is always subjective, but you know, having used life cycle for the last couple of years and understanding the power that gives us through the search profile, if you've got 200 grand, I don't need to sell your house at 150, do I?
Yeah.
There's a fine line there between losing that potential buyer, but also it's an opportunity to be able to say to someone, well, yeah, you know, we want you to pay a bit.
And also if they've clicked on it a couple of times and you go, I'm not interested in it. Oh, did I? What property is like that one you looked at about 7 times? Yeah,
I got called out on Instagram last week. Someone I follow, I don't know the people, but they're a local little developer around North Wales somewhere, and the lad said, we've been messed about by the agent and forced to pay 25 grand more, and there's all these comments, you know, name him, shame him and all this. And I just went on and said, look, as an estate agent in North Wales myself, I think the estate agent there has acted in the best interest of the client they were working for, which isn't the buyer. So well done to the agent. And people called me out, you know, and I said, well, happy days. Wait till you come sell your own house, mate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you want
that'd be a bit different, wouldn't it?
And you want 25 grand more.
Yeah.
So you know you've got to do your best, but and to get the best. But I don't think I think too many will just bow down to the power of, you know, we need to get 10 through this month because we need 25 grand in commissions to come through to service the salaries, etc., the right move accounts, all this sort of stuff. So I think, you know, you've got to have a business model, you've got to have a business that makes money, but actually you're there to represent your client.
So you went through that process of setting up a letting agency, and then you went into sales, which is quite normal for some of those evolutions to happen. And it was with you and Gary. When was the point where you started taking on staff? And like being in that and like that.
So we've been going. How long would I say we've been going? 14 years this year. Sarah has been with us 10 years next month. Sarah came from
Similar time to when the sales came along. Then.
Yeah, she came from the hotel trade. Just working as a chambermaid. Needed hours that she could fit in flexibly around the kids. I need someone who could answer the phone, who could take down names and addresses, and the old CRM are just banging the stuff into there and managing it. And then she's gone on to fully looking after the lettings now. So yeah, that was the first time we took someone on. And then I had a couple of different people that had, when I started with sales, I started with one young lady. No, I didn't. Let me think. Yes, I did. I started with one lady who stuck with us right the way through till COVID. But I just saw that as a bolt on then, Rob, because there was a bit of stuff going on. My dad had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and sadly he passed away. So I really wasn't paying any attention massively to that at that moment in time. I thought if she covers her overhead, her salary, and gives us a bit, I'm happy at that moment in time, because I had bigger things to think about and look after at that moment in time. So she stuck with us all the way through to she was on maternity, and when COVID hit, and I said, well, you might as well just see your maternity through. And then she sort of realised she wanted to spend more time with the kids, and that's when I sort of drilled down and looked into it a bit more, and then stumbled across Life Cycle, I think, on YouTube at some point.
That's probably what people do, yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's where we've well, how's it been like now? We've been 2 years maybe.
2 years last Christmas.
2 years last Christmas, wasn't it?
Yeah, December the 1st we started with Life Cycle.
And it's been quite an interesting journey for you, like from a coaching perspective, because we've had some really good, interesting conversations, not necessarily about just the platform itself, but you as an individual and what you've been going maybe in the last sort of few years. If you don't mind sort of going into it, like you last year you worked out like some of the frustrations you might have found in the industry, leadership, how you are as an individual, some of the things that people might be struggling with, like regards to like the frustration, I don't take a property on, why has he gone with this person, etc. And then you were diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
How's that without going too much into it? Like before Paul running a business to Paul afterwards, has there been any changes in what you've been looking at? Like is in maybe like how you're looking at the business in a bit of a different way, or how you've maybe operated that business in the past and thought, oh, that's why I've probably been operating in that way. Just to maybe help any listeners out there who might be thinking, why do I look at everything different to most other people out there?
Yeah, and that's the one thing, innit, Rob? I remember back to, you actually alerted me to it. So I think on our second or third session 2 and a bit years ago, you sort of said, maybe, do you think you've got ADHD? And I don't know. And you started me thinking, and I remember my mum had given me school reports in an envelope, all of them, from the age of 5 through to 16. And when I sort of was contemplating about getting a diagnosis, because you can't get it NHS, you have to go privately. And one of the things they asked me was, did I have any school reports?
Yeah, like, here's a stack.
So here's a stack. I read them all, and they give me some key phrases, and they said, if them key phrases, just tell us how many times they appear. And when I read them, Rob, the penny dropped. And one teacher, would have been 1984, I was 14, one teacher said my thinking was retarded. So it probably is retarded in some respects, but it's just different. And I knew back in school that I didn't think the way is the same as everyone else. So, and I still think today in our office of, what is there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us, I still think that I see everything completely different to the other 5. There's a problem, they all like come up with the same solution. I come up with something totally different all the time. Yeah. So
that one.
It's good. It's good on that front, but you have to be super careful with the, emotion side of it. the regulation of the emotions. So going back to probably the market trading background and that, it's just a quick like, "Hi Rob, what do you want today? There you go, take your money, disappear."
And there's probably a buzz off that part to it because it's like a constant
Dopamine, isn't it? You're looking for that dopamine.
Yeah,
all the
you're
time.
dealing with this, grabbing this, sell, like and then a short-term communication. Whereas obviously the industry we're in is you build up relationships for like, 6 months minimum if you're lucky these days with those solicitors going, and that's a wave like this of emotions going through.
And then you get paid on completion day, and it's just a series of numbers in the bank, and then a series of numbers disappear. But if I go back to the trade and sitting in with me dad as a kid in the van coming home, and like me dad counting all the, it was when the old pound note was around. Thousands, hundreds and thousands of them all the time, just shoving them in his pocket, and thinking, I mean, that was it. He'd just go to work in the morning with a van full of gear, come home with an empty van and a load of money. And that was just how life was. So for me, the difficult thing with, not so much lettings, but certainly sales, is the longevity. And it doesn't sound long when you're sort of in someone's life for 3 to 6 months. But I only want you in my life for 10 minutes. Give us your pound and disappear. I've earned 50 pence, go away. That's,
But there is, from what I've working with you, there's an element of, you're very to the core of honesty on that part to it. Yeah. So it's not like a sales, like I do it, screw you over for 5 minutes and I don't because I've got the deal. There's always been a moral compass with you, which I've found, which I know, like having worked with you long enough now, that as much as it's because of quite introverted with regards to like how your brain is configured, it can be quite emotionally draining and massively energy draining on that part to it. Huge. So it's like, I'm with you, I do everything for you, I'll do it honestly, I'll do it for the now, but I can't do this longevity of real focusing because of how the brain works.
It's that, and it's the, I do find that quite difficult, but then it's also the stuff where other people just move on so quickly that I find taxing, and the things that, and you probably know, dealing with the mindset yourself, that, you can become very fixated on something that's really small. Yeah. And it can drag you away for hours and days at a time, and you'll go and investigate it and delve deep into it, and before you know it, you've lost 2 days. Yeah.
And is that like understanding it with the diagnosis last year? I know obviously it's still fresh to you because that's unpacking years and years of working it out. But coming to that point where you've almost started to draw a line with like, now some of this makes sense. Has that helped you then going forward with going, actually, why am I over obsessing about this particular thing? Because old Paul in the past would have known this, but now I know that this is probably something to do with how I'm configured.
Yeah, I mean, it's made me understand, Rob, that we're all different and different people want different things out of you. So certainly when you sit in some people's lounges, they'll be interested in price, some, value of the property. Some people are interested in your fee, and some people are interested in just what you're going to do for them. So for me, it's made me sort of figure out that, I was chugging along before thinking that I was always right. It was only my way. And that's why I got very disappointed when but now I understand actually, well, these people have a choice. Yeah. There's a choice out there. So I do get it. It doesn't make the hurt any less. It's, it's still difficult to understand. And the biggest thing I struggle with at the moment and is the people, is generally, and I'll sort of say this as a whole, if you like, the people that the agents still overvalue. I find that incredibly not difficult to deal with, but I just think you're taking the client on a journey of an expectation that you're never going to achieve. Never. So.
Do you find do you see a lot of people, what's the aftermath of someone doing that? Like, do you find your clients come to you and go, do you find a similarity with all of it?
Do you know what? I was listening to a podcast in the gym the other morning, and someone said, you haven't lost it, you just haven't won it yet. In 14 years, Rob, no one's come back to me. Because would you go back to a guy and say, mate, you were right and I was wrong? You're probably too embarrassed, aren't you, in most cases? So when I say no one's come back to me, no one's come back to me and said, Paul, you were right 6 months ago when you told us the house was worth 300 grand and we went on at 350.
Yeah.
We should listen to you. That generally doesn't happen. So, yeah, you're right. You know, life cycle does give us the ability to see what they're reading, and you know, they've been reading the blog that says, you know, why is my house not having any viewings and all those things.
You can see the stuff that they're going through.
Yeah. But I still think too many people, you know, I went out to one a couple of weeks ago where literally as I walked in the front door, they told me it's 220 or it's, you know, we're not selling it. And I thought, well, no, I can't get you that.
Yeah.
I can't get you that. And, you know, I was gone on with someone else at 220 and I'll just sit and watch it and see what happens with it. But
what like, there's obviously a lot of agents out there who will just be taking it on, and I come across them, and there's even an evolution of them. Like, you find that they either recognise that there needs to be a position themselves in the market, or they're just busy fools. Because you find that, you know, an ego part is, I want all the business, and like, and you see it promotion on social media, but you see behind the scenes of like sickness, or, you know, where you're just taking on just stuff because you want it on, but actually not having the desired result at the end, which is ridiculous. So, like, on your part, like, how do you? Is it because of your lettings portfolio that you can accept some level of that? You've got income coming in from elsewhere.
yeah,
There's not desperation. I'll just take it on. Like, if you said 250, yeah. I'd take 250. Although I said 200.
Yeah.
Like, you're the expert here. We were put on for 250. You know your house.
Do you know what, Rob? I've had it's a good question. The lettings portfolio is massive to anyone that maybe hasn't got a lettings portfolio. I would say to most agents, get yourself building one, because, you know, it is. Whilst it can be hard work, it does give you the backbone of knowing each month that there is an element of money coming in and you're not having to watch every single penny. But I just see too many. I don't know where I've read this stat or whether I've made this one up, Rob, but they use, or someone said it on a podcast somewhere, but I seem to get the impression of corporates that if they go out and value 40, they'll take on 20 and they'll sell 10. That means 30 go by the wayside. And, you know, I would rather take on 10 and sell 9. Why do you
said you got really good, what was it the other day, the stats, wasn't it? Like
97%.
Yeah, like 62.
62 is the, well, 60,
I think 60 odd is the
my right move manager, when I get one, who rings me up once every 14 years, tells me the average is about 62% of listed to completed, and we done 97% last year.
And is it because of, like, okay, it's 220, I can't take it on for that? Like, it's because you're actually being honest with it?
I am being honest with it, and I don't have that conversation with you in 2 weeks and go, mate, your house is too to reduce. And I get that is what happens in the whole industry, but there's something deep probably inside of me, my DNA, that says you can't do that, because you've actually instructed me to achieve the best price. And I know the industry is aligned to, you know, starting in and coming down. But I always say to people, I remember, and I was trying to think about it last night. There's an RAF camp down by us, or there was, RAF Sealand. And there was a load of camp houses that the ministry sold off maybe 20, 25 years ago, Rob. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure at the time you could buy a house for 50 grand. And I'm sure they put signs up there like, all for sale through the MOD with an agent. I think they were like 15 grand. And they had queues and queues and queues of people from 15 grand. So I always say jokingly to people, let me put your house on the market for £1. I'll create a line of people 3 mile long by tomorrow morning. One of them people will pay you the money you want.
And do you know what? I completely opposite off this topic of, say, property on that part. On TikTok, there was this guy called Spudman.
Seen him.
Right, he's got a.
Has he been giving them away?
You know, he gives some away, but he's got obviously like a trailer that he has in wherever it is.
Yeah.
And then it's like a video the other day of like people queuing round the blocks, and he openly promotes that he gets his spuds and he gets all of his cheese and that from like Booker's or something like that. So it's your cheap beans, your cheese, standard spud, They even got I think it was like a curry thing. We just plopped out this pit thing and just chucked it in there. So there's nothing like, it's literally like
nothing good about it.
Nothing good about it. But people are queuing around the block and willing to pay like £6 for a spud. So there must be some psychology in that offering of like, people want something that other people want, and they want to be a part of that queue. They want to be a part of that, and so you're right. I mean, the reason why I think we've always got on well is because when I used to go out and value properties of the same sort, and I used to come back to the office and I used to have arguments with the owners or business bosses, etc. Because it would be like,
you didn't go back to the office. Because like me, you're getting someone's lounging there for 4 hours.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I'll go back to the office the next morning, but we would have those conversations. It was like, why did you not get it on at 375? And it's like, well, it's 325. So like, I can't overvalue.
I sort of work this out in my head, right? I'm not a gamer, but I'm sure there is some gamers listening to this, or will be listening to this. Think about what those PS people, and I don't know what they're all called, Game Boy and all that, them gizmos. But think about what they do. They tell you they're launching a new model in September or October in the January, don't they? They drip feed that all year. And by the time you get to near Christmas when they're going to launch them, and the kid's been driving you mad all year, it doesn't matter how much it's going to be. You've got to buy one because that kid has driven you mad to have one. So if you could create the same thing around a house, you will get someone to pay you the money. But too many people want to go the other way. Put themselves outside of the marketplace, stick it up there at 300 grand, then ring me or you up in 2 weeks and go, Paul, why we get no viewings? There's your reason why.
So going back to, you talk about your staff, you said about, you've got 6 members of staff, yeah? So what's the mix up of them? Is it 50-50 sales and lettings?
No, 2 lettings, 2 sales, and Gary pretty much looks after finance, and then I have a lady, Claire, who does some of the financial stuff as well as all the progression around the back end of the sales. And you said like your first person was 10 years ago. So has that been because of the portfolio's growing, the numbers of sales is growing? Have you, like, when did those people come on? They've come on ad hoc in the last few years, really. They've just come on as I've felt we've needed them. Claire came, we needed someone for accounts part-time, and she was working we just found a company part-time locally that would send someone in your office once a week or once a month, and it turned out to be someone who was a former estate agent who I knew from years ago. So in the end, she started answering the phone, so she came on full-time, and then I needed someone else on the lettings a couple of years ago, and a young lad who was working in the lettings industry in Scotland, had been in a long-distance relationship with someone in our area. So he was moving down, they bought a house together. So he's still with us now. And then I've just recently taken someone on to help us in sales, because I want to explore that area more, but I've been, struggling to manage all of the life cycle stuff along with the day-to-day stuff inside. And when I say struggling to manage all the life cycle stuff, I mean life cycle in itself can just be something that I think, and listening to Charlotte earlier, I think has given me sort of the thinking that she's obviously focused on it really deeply now, and grown her market share massively because of that. So I think that it just needs that little bit more time from me working with you to be able to just sit those pieces, the final bits of the jigsaw into place. Well, like we discussed them in our sessions, it's releasing your time. Yeah. It's allocation of time and anything else. Like we were only on talking. I was on a host of another podcast, and we were talking about a review of Ian Macbeth, and he was talking about his setup, and he was like, working out jobs per hour. Is it a £1 job? Is it a £5 job? Is it a £10 job? Is it a £100 job? And then starting, like, when you start to allocate your time, like if I'm doing something for £5 an hour, I could be doing something that could be earning me £100 an hour. Like, it's crazy to think that I just employ someone who does a £5 job when I could focus on earning the other 95. But you're right. But I think I might have said to you the other week, I think I was sat at home and I think I was waiting I think I was doing a Zoom maybe with you, and it was about half an hour early, and I just got up to shut the door, and next thing I'm hoovering the stairs. Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what
And
happens.
yeah, I mean, I 100% like even this morning, like meant to go and make a cup of tea, and then about half an hour later, I was upstairs hoovering the staircase.
Yeah.
And then put a hoodie on, and then realised that like the cup of tea was still sat downstairs with the tea bag in it.
Yeah.
Got cold. So
And
100%.
that's the problem. And if anyone walks in our office, I just want to get involved, because generally as well, living and working in the same town you've grown up in all the time, you know a lot of people.
Yeah.
So even if they're just coming in to say hello, but even if they're coming in to say, I know either them or I know their family. So before you know it, you're getting involved in something you don't need to be involved in. Oh, the boiler's broken. Yeah, we'll get that sorted for you. By the way, mate, I was a kid. You know, before you, and you just go, right, what have I got to do? Oh, Rob asked me to do that. Shit, I've got to do it for the morning.
Yeah.
I'll do it in the morning. I'll do it. He's calling at 11. I'll do it at 5 to.
Yeah.
Then you say to me, have you done that? No, mate.
Yeah, but I'll be honest with you, quite a few agents I work with, the purpose of having coaching is they tend to, the day before or even sometimes the hour before, all of a sudden I get the stuff through because it's like, fuck, I've met Rob now, I need better sort that out. Whereas if you didn't have that accountability partner, it's always on that to-do list because it's always a difficult one.
And I won't do it if I don't believe in it either, Rob.
Yeah.
And that's the that's the one thing I find about estate agency is that, you know, I can't come out. I remember someone phoning up a few years ago and moaning to Claire. I'd been out of value. The lady didn't know I owned the business, and she said I wasn't interested in like the John Lewis curtains in the house. I'm not. I'm really not. I don't care.
So I've got two questions before I let you go, mate. First one's quite a big one. What do you feel is like the good things of the industry and the bad things of the industry? Without you going down a rabbit hole of ranting.
No, I've met some amazing people.
Like, what have you learnt maybe from the people you met over the last 5 years? Have you got any stuff that you think, oh, actually, that's pretty good, useful?
I've learnt that people always let you down. Always. Period. And it doesn't matter how close you think they are to you. They always let you down.
That's not the good one then, yeah?
No. Good one.
In what way? Without...
I don't know whether my expectation and my, you know, I've still got 54. I've still got quite a lot of desire, drive, hunger. I just get disappointed when people like, I left school with no education, Rob, because I think clearly back in the 70s and 80s when I was in school, ADHD wasn't really massively a thing. It wasn't picked up. I left school with no education, straight into a family business. But if I want to do something, I want to get shit done. I'll have a go myself. And if I don't know how, you know, typically now it's so easy to go on YouTube and watch a video, how to wire a plug, whatever. And I'll do it, and I've run marathons off the back of that, being, you know, remember my mum saying to me, you couldn't run a marathon, so next thing I'm running a London Marathon. I just get disappointed that people don't have that same drive. And whether that's just drive, people say to me, I can't afford a new house. Well, you can, just get more income. Well, Paul, you don't pay me more. Well, yeah, it's not my responsibility to pay you more. I want to lose weight. Stop eating it. It's easy stuff, isn't it? But people don't have that desire to, you know. And I. So
but you're talking about obviously like when you say you partnered with people, whatever you said like the thing that you don't like necessarily about the industry. The frustrating people letting you down, is that being like outside of like suppliers, or is it being more internally with some of the people you've employed?
I don't massively take any with suppliers, with the exception of probably life cycle. I don't get involved with suppliers massively, Rob. I don't, you know, I just see them as they're a need, aren't they? You know, your business needs them. I know some of the groups, estate agent groups I'm in, people seem to be swapping different things every 5 minutes. I just don't, you know, I've got something, it works. There might be something out there better, and there probably is, and at a certain period in time you probably will sit and have a look and go, well, that's different. But
that's quite interesting, because obviously the traits of sometimes like magpie effect can come into like an ADHD trait of like chopping between different new hyperfocuses. So it's quite interesting that what I found with working with you is that you do look at stuff, but you tend to extend out an obsession before you realise whether that's something to invest in or gone, no, actually, what was I thinking? Like I've got on my folder, I've got a thing called an ideas to dump list. Every time I think of an idea that I think, oh, it's going to be the best, it's going to be like the next thing, I now write it in there, and I come back to it a week later and go, review it. Like, what was I thinking? Or I'll wait another 30 days.
Yeah, I definitely have them ideas. So, but I mean, if you go back to what's been good and bad about it, people let you down, but the good about it as well, people can amaze me. Certain people have amazed me. You know, I guess we've all gone out to instructions where we think we're never getting instructed, and then before you even get back to the office, they're on the phone.
Yeah.
And you think, but that and people have amazed me in certain. But I guess what amazes me the most is the people that I meet. And I always want to know their background story. So I went to a property the other day, and the guy was related. He was a brother. It was 3 siblings, a pair of twins, and the other one. I was with the other one, but a pair of twins that both play football for England. And like, that was it. The talking about the house was 10 minutes. The talking about football was 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so it has opened you up to meeting, you know, and yeah, you do. But I generally feel that people. They let themselves down. They let themselves down. I don't know why people don't have the same maybe drive as me and you.
Actually, like the book that Sales Genius 2 book I was part on, the bit I wrote about from my Amazon bestseller was all around how very interesting, digging deeper into having interesting conversations with people, learning more about them, can actually lead you to doing more business with them without actually being a sales-led call.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting on that part, because that's always been a fundamental belief.
And I think that, Rob, some people don't want to open up. Some people don't want to tell you about their backstory and who they are and how they got to that house or whatever. But I'm quite inquisitive, because actually what makes you tick is, you know, you're not just selling the house, are you? You're solving the problem. The house is coming to sale for a reason around something else that's going on in their life. Yeah. So death, divorce, job move, whatever it might be. And it can be for all sorts of reasons. One of the best ones I've done, when I say I've met some really interesting people, a little old lady, maybe 12 months ago, who her sister had passed away, and I don't think she realised that her sister had a load of money, and she'd left it all to this sister. And the sister approached me and said, I didn't think, I thought I was going to be stuck in this house forever and a day, because my husband passed away, and you know, we never had a pension as such, we just living off a state pension, and then all of a sudden she's come to this load of money. I'm able to sell her house, she's been able to buy her dream bungalow near her daughter, and you think, that is the reason. Yeah, that it is amazing. But I wouldn't, you know, it would have just been easy to walk in her house and go, oh yeah, 200 grand, sign here. Yeah. You know, but
there's more meaning to it.
It was loads more
meaning. Why, like finding out more, why are we selling this? What's happened? What's the journey?
And I understand it is difficult for some people to maybe divulge their life to you. But you know, if I go in the dentist on my way home tonight and go, oh, Mr. Bennett, I've got a problem with my teeth. And he goes, which one, Paul? And I just sit there mute. Well, I've got about 50 teeth in my head. I'm like, you know, you're helping me to help. The more you tell me, the more I can help solve your problem quicker.
So, final question: future of estate agency. Where do you see it? Like from an honest opinion, because you've got I
listened to Charlotte before and she said about the number of people she had in her data, and I think I wrote it down. I think I've got I had a look at mine actually yesterday. I think I was just short of 13,000 people in my database. And I've always said it since I sort of signed up with Lifecycle, you know, within 5 years I probably won't need Rightmove, because you're nurturing your own database, and I think Rightmove know that. I think they know that you know, it's changed massively. Me and you earlier on, Rob, we were talking about a car from 2000, a car from now, how they look so different. You know, we didn't have the internet 30 years ago, so it's just changed massively. And in the last few years, there is agents out there now who definitely haven't got Rightmove, who are probably selling houses off Facebook and Instagram. That is just going to be, so just having your own database of active buyers all the time is going to be, so that's where I see it. I don't see it, you know, like we were talking about the newspaper before, the newspaper's gone. Rightmove will probably come and go. It might stay, but it might have to adapt about how it does it differently. And I think, you know, having your own
it's more about owning the data, isn't it? Like, not the data is actually usable data, because you think about it, newspapers, you didn't own the distribution channel. Like, you had to put properties in the paper because the newspaper had the distribution channel. And obviously the internet changed that, because it allowed you on a smaller scale to reach those people without there's something needed to be put for their front door.
You know all the numbnuts that sign up for the Tesco Club card. It isn't because they get the food cheaper. It's because Tesco's know what Rob Brady buy on a Wednesday
100%.
afternoon at 2:00.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So we're only doing the same, aren't we?
Yeah.
Effectively. So you want to be able to get, you know, that your market, your product in front of the right audience, don't you? That's all it's about. So that's where I see it. And actually, you know, we all know our phones are listening to everything we're doing. So I think that is definitely where estate agencies go. And the fundamentals of it will never change, will they? You know, conveyancing always takes way too long. That all is a shit show. It needs sorting out, you know. But the whole process, people still want to buy houses. It's still in the UK. It's still the thing that, you know, as I say, as an 18-year-old kid, my dad saying, get yourself a house, get your house bought. It's still something we want to encourage people to do. And I don't think that'll change anytime soon. So that bit won't, but certainly the technology and the using of everyone now, where you go in, if you go in any supermarket, or not supermarket so much, if you certainly go in a clothing retailer now and you buy an item, they always ask for your email address if they want to send you the receipt. They don't. They just.
Well, I'll give you a great example. Like even just from a smaller business side to it. Both my brothers got businesses, and they use their mailing list to, like, one booked and fully booked to 2 cheese fondue nights. Like on I think 9 o'clock he emailed out a thing, and it was by 9:30 gone. Cool. Had his team not been asking for the email address when someone came in for a coffee,
he's got no audience.
He would have had no audience, and that data that would have been none the wiser. So he'd have then been relying on your newspapers, your magazines, your social, like those ad campaigns. But so obviously that's where probably you look at, if you're talking about Rightmove. Yeah. Like Rightmove has its own entity because they have all the data.
They do.
They're the people. So going back to what we had before, Charlotte's on the episode, Charlotte was saying about no one notifying anyone. You're the only one that notifies me in the area because everyone's relying on Rightmove. So all the time that they don't change those processes, it's always going to be reliant on, we put a property and Rightmove's going to alert our buyer. So you can't strategically come away from that. As much as you go, screw Rightmove, I'm going to come off it. It's like, unless you've got a new plan to reach that same person, and if you think the plan is just Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and that lot, the problem you've got with that is Facebook, TikTok and that lot own the data. So all you're doing is just basically moving it from one distribution channel to another, no different than removing the distribution channel from the newspapers. Yeah. So like the difference in what is happening with your side to it is you're taking those distribution channels and you're pulling it through and taking the data. Yeah. And then it gives the ability for you to communicate with the database however you want to. Yeah. Not, I've got to then push it to Rightmove to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it is, you know, it's just a snapshot of where I see it. I mean, I don't know enough. Mark Burgess knows a lot more about the data, and he seems to be a few years ahead of everybody on that, thinking in that electronic world of where it's all going to be happening. But, you know, certainly I see that the ability now, I said to you before earlier, there's one thing that never changes, and that's picking up the phone. Yeah. But what we've got now is, in our old CRM, you didn't know which one of 10,000 people you were going to ring. Now you go, right, those 20 there have looked at that, and those 5 have looked at it 5 times. Yeah. So them 5 are the first phone call. Yeah. That's powerful. Yeah. That's really powerful because you're getting in front of the right audience.
Outcome over output. I think Mark talks about it being like, what's the end result of it, rather than going, here's 100 phone calls and then still coming back to it saying, I've spoken to those 5 people. Yeah. And like the 95 conversations or 95 left messages could have been doing something a bit more productive.
Yeah, Valpal sent me an email this morning. I was reading it on the train on the way down. They're saying that of all the social media leads that get a free valuation, about 18% convert.
First 12 months.
Yeah, but of those 18%, only, so if 18% becomes, so if we take the 18% of people, let's say it's 20 people, only 5% of them people go with the agent that made the advert. 95% go with another agent. Yeah. So all they've done is really effectively, they've just sown the seed in someone's mind about potentially selling the house, haven't they?
But that comes back to that whole, like, if you look at Rightmove stats from quite some time ago, it's probably changed a little bit, but they say it takes 18 months for someone to actually come to the market.
Yeah.
So their average stats, I think, from Valpay is like 9 months, or when we're looking to convert.
Yeah.
So there has to be that. What do you do with someone who's done an inquiry now and might be not looking to move to next year? And I'm one of these people. Like, I know I talk about this all the time, but I say to clients like, Dad of twins, we need to upgrade the house soon. Cal's got a flat, we need to sell that, and we need to move to a bigger house. So we are looking at doing that until she comes out of her fixed term rate. So I'm one of those buyers in the market. And if I wasn't so in tune with what my value of my house is and I was doing instant valuations, if I was doing it now and an agent was calling me up, I'd be like, no, we're not ready to move. But if I was in somewhere where I was communicating, and someone sent me a message in 2025 saying, if you think about selling in 2025 and want to know what the best tips are, click here. That's the sort of thing I'm going to be reading that.
I'm still getting Rob, the old lady who we used to buy for the stuff. Very set criteria, 125 grand houses. I went round, so there's a local agent round by us who are part of the Sequence group, and I still get emails off them today for 300 and 400 grand houses, and I only ever wanted 2-bed semis at 125.
Yeah.
So that just shows you that, you know, they're still in that old, for me, the old world, and that old world is that, you know, overvaluing bullshit, just like blowing smoke up people's arses to make the vendor feel happy or to satisfy their area manager that they've got 40 valuations this month and they're going to take X on, etc., etc. That, for me, you know, that's not working in your client's best interest. That's not, you've got to, you know, there is a time and a place to have a conversation, and what they should do, and I've done it a couple of times last year, people looked at me, or sometimes look at me a bit soft when I say, I've told clients to come off the market. Come off the market. You've exhausted the process at this moment in time. We're not getting to where we need to be. The market will catch up or do some of the improvements, and then the market will come back and you'll sell your property. But they won't. They won't tell them. They'll just batter them around the head with the wet fish. Reduce. That is why, sadly, our industry, when you ask most people what you think of estate agents, they say shit. And that is why. And that's what I say about that. There's people in this industry that have been in it for years, and there'll be the corporate people above them, their area managers and all those people that are sitting on the boards and the shareholders and all that. They're not really interested in the client, they're interested in their profit. That's it. Top and bottom. I'm more interested in the client. The clients ask me to do my best. I'll do my best, and if my best is telling you to come off the market at the moment because the market isn't seeing the value in what you've got, then I think that's it. I think that's the best.
So to wrap up, you would say development of technology, but blended with more empathetic, humanised estate agency.
Honesty, Rob. Honesty, yeah. Honesty, empathetic, understanding, you know.
And also, like, with the technology coming more and more so now, you can't hide from that bullshit. You know what I mean? Because you are more authentically showing in more rawness than anything else. You can't hide behind a phone call or anything like that.
You know, I still can't get my head around. I still can't. I went to one yesterday and I said to the lady, she was on the market with someone else, said, this is a 0.75 agent. She goes, how do you know that? I go, you haven't got a floor plan.
Yeah.
But what I still can't get my head around, here's only a little terrace, 165 grand. But what I can't get my head around is why they focus on the 1% fee. Focus on the 99%. The 99% is the massive. It's like getting a lemon meringue pie and me just taking a tiny slither. Well, you got all the rest of the cake, mate. Go over there and be a fat bastard. I'll just have this little bit here.
Yeah.
But they focus on my little bit.
Yeah.
They want all the pie. Well, no, you know, pay me properly, the proper money, you'll get a proper result. But people don't see that, and I cannot get my head around why they focus on the fee and not the objective, which is selling the house for the best price possible. And the best price possible normally will come from a good marketing campaign and from having a series of good buyers that engage with the market that are ready to buy now. Not tomorrow or next week, but yeah, there you go, lemon meringue pies.
I think that's a place to leave it there, mate. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Rob. Loved it.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this Estate Agency X podcast. Can you make sure that you're actually subscribed to this podcast channel if you liked the content? It helps us massively to get better guests, and it just helps us generally. So you might think you're subscribed, but just have a double check whatever your podcast platform of preference is, that you're actually subscribed, and then that way we can continue to grow the channel and get better and better guests for you.